awkward among the relations between Emma and George, but lastly they will settle down with happily. This was as we go on the story. So by this, in one way or the other way, when we go on reading the characters, in one way or the other, the character intermingles with each other. Some sort of thinking that Emma loves Philip Elton or Mr. Frank Churchill, where in such condition it is not true, because at the end of the novel, Emma got married to George Knightley. Now, with this information, we can say that once in a celebration party, Emma invites to Mr. Philip Elton to get close to Harriet Smith. During this situation, directly or indirectly, Mr. Philip Elton attracts towards Emma, but she is not at all giving any special attention towards Philip Elton, because Emma is concerned with Harriet Smith to give the hands of Harriet Smith to Mr. Philip Elton. This is what one way or the other it seems to confuse us, but at the end will come everything clear. But once in a party, Mr. Elton humiliates Harriet Smith because he is in infatuation towards Emma. He humiliates Harriet Smith. By saying this, George Knightley came in the rescue towards Harriet Smith, and he rescues from humiliation. And George Knightley danced with Harriet Smith to boost her confidence. And later, this is shock to Philip Elton, and during this celebration of party, he proposes, Mr. Philip Elton proposes to Emma, but she denies or rejects the proposal of Mr. Elton, because he is not at all interested in the relation of Philip Elton, where he insists to get married to Harriet Smith to Mr. Philip Elton. When heard this news, he becomes very sad, Mr. Elton, and he left away the Highbury town. And here he marries to Augusta Hawkins. So it becomes somewhat a disturbance to Emma Widows. But Harriet Smith is very happy now. She is very happy now because he is very much in concern with Robert Morden. Now her line is very clear. Nobody will interfere in the affairs of Harriet Smith and Robert, but still Emma will be the hurdle in the life of Harriet Smith. The village of Highbury is impatiently anticipating the visit of Frank Churchill from London, who is the son of Mr. Weston. He is the son of his first wife. Frank Churchill visits to the village of Highbury. After the death of his wife, Frank Churchill's mother, Mr. Weston sent the child to be raised by his wife's family, acknowledging that he did not have enough wealth to provide for the boy. That's why he sends to his wife's family. Frank is thought to be an ideal match for Emma, and without having met him, Emma agrees that his age and breeding make him a good suitor for her. By intermingling with each other, the characters analyze that like that. But truly, Mr. Frank Churchill is not at all concerned with Emma, because Mr. Frank Churchill is very much concerned with the character of Jane Fairfax. Both are in love with each other. The another character who occupies Emma's thought is Miss Jane Fairfax, the granddaughter of Mrs. Bates' family, the impoverished widow of the farmer vicar at Highbury Town, and is the niece of Miss Bates, a treacherous spinster who lives with her mother in the town. Jane is as equal to Emma in every respect, like the beauty, the education, the talents and skills, except for status, and provokes some jealousy in Emma. Because when you see or compare with the character of Emma Woodhouse and Jane Fairfax, both stands in equal. But one difference is very clear, that Emma Woodhouse is very rich, and where Jane Fairfax is not. She is not at all rich, but with reference with her beauty, talent, the charming and education, all the same, but except with one case, that is the matter of wealth. So the total status plays a very vital role in the novel. As we go on reading, we come across the different thematic concerns in the story. Though Jane will soon visit Highbury because the wealthy family who raised her after her parents' death has gone on vacation. That's why she visits the town Highbury. Jane Fairfax is on the way to meet their relatives now. In the meantime, as I told you earlier, Mr. Elton returns from Bath with the news that he is engaged to a Miss Augusta Hawkins, where he got married to her now. So these are all the story we come across in the different views and perceptions that each characters in one or the other we find something difficulty or confusing while reading. But when we come to the concluding point of the story, we are very much clear regarding the characters now. Now, when we see the character of Mr. Frank Churchill in the novel, visits the Weston's family members, and Emma is pleased to discover that he lives up to her expectations. Emma and Frank begin to spend time together. Much of her time will be kept very much to meet each other, Emma and Frank. But she notices that he seems to be somewhat insubstantial and immature. He makes Frank Churchill makes a day trip to London for the sole reason for getting his haircut. This act made Emma acknowledges that is very much superficial. As Frank and Emma continue to spend more time in each other's company, Mr. George Knightley becomes somewhat jealous now, because Mr. George Knightley is very much concerned with the meetings with Emma and Frank Churchill. Mr. George Knightley becomes somewhat jealous now, because Mr. Knightley is very much concerned with Emma, because he is in love with Emma Woodhouse, but he doesn't like with meeting somebody to Emma. He disapproves of Frank, convinced that he is not to be trusted, especially with Emma's heart. Emma in turn becomes jealous as she suspects that Mr. Knightley might be in love with Jane Fairfax, but it is also not true, because Jane Fairfax is very much concerned with Frank Churchill, and Frank Churchill is very much concerned with Jane Fairfax, and where in the case of Mr. George Knightley, he is in love with Emma Woodhouse. So these are all characters. These are all the resemblance characters by one. We see that these are all the view that Emma thinks in her own perception, in his narrow mindset, but which is not at all true in the sequence of the story as we go on reading one by one with the characters intermingling or attaching with each other's name here. So, but Mr. George is very much clear in his will and act, but when we see the case with Emma, she is not at all approached in a practical view of thought. So now, as we go on reading novel again and again, we think and rethink that the characters are very much depicts their involvement with one to the other. So, for example, if you see that when Frank Churchill returns, he and Emma sponsor a ball at the Crown Inn, a celebration party. He observes their quite close relations with Frank and Emma. Again, Mr. George is disturbed by seeing this act, and where he again where he visits the Highbury town, Mr. Elton humiliated Harriet in that party, but suddenly again Mr. George came to rescue to Harriet Smith, and now Emma thinks that George will be the right person to Harriet Smith, but it is not at all right. It is completely wrong, because Harriet Smith is concerned with Mr. Robert Martin. So, the story, we can analyze that at the end of the novel, to conclude my presentation. Lastly, Mr. George Knightley soon professes his love for Emma, and they plan to marry each other. Yet there are two obstacles to get married to Emma. That is, one is the first one. If Emma were to marry him, she would have to leave her father, Mr. Woodhouse, who would not be able to bear the separation. And the second one is, she must break the news to Harriet that Mr. Knightley decides to move into Hartfield after their marriage to allay Mr. Woodhouse's fears of being left alone. Harriet takes the news about Mr. Knightley well and soon after reunites with Mr. Robert Martin. At last, in the story, the novel concludes with three marriages. Robert Martin marries to Harriet Smith, Frank Churchill marries to Jane Fairfax, and finally, Mr. Knightley, George Knightley marries to Emma Woodhouse. So, these are all the characters we came across in the novel. And when we read out the novel, we come out certain thematic concerns of the novel, as I pointed like that is the first one. As we go on reading novel, we came to know that the theme of marriage is very much concerned here. It is getting married to one or other way, where Emma tries to cope up with one or the other. And the second thematic concern in the novel is about gender limitations, because the character of Emma is very much dominant with the other characters, where we can see the discrimination among gender limitations in the novel. Again, the third one I have come across in the in the novel is the theme of a misperception, because the doubts won't be clarified as early when you are reading, because in one way or the other, readers getting confused in dilemma that which character is going to marry to whom or for what reason. That's what the misperception we came across. And the fourth one, the theme I have observed is about the pride and vanity. If you want to say for this symbolic representation is none other than Emma Woodhouse, because he is very much concerned with pride and her vanity, where all the time she dominant with other characters. She is mostly the dominant character in the novel. And lastly, I have come across certain views to analyze that the theme of social class highly exposed or presented in the novel, that the discrimination among rich and the poor. For instance, if I say that Emma Woodhouse belongs to the rich family, where Robert Martin is a poor farmer, when Harriet Smith wants to get married to Robert Martin, Emma denies to do so because it is the problem of the high and low cost. So these are all the characters and thematic concerns that we came across in the story of Emma, the novel as we presented until now. The Jane Austen has depicted all the information sort of in a knowledge, in different views and different perceptions, with the intermingling of the characters in one way or the other, one on the side of a social distance, to say that social discriminations about rich and the poor, misunderstanding among the characters, the incidents created among such a way that to get confused among the readers will somewhat find some gap between the story, but at the end of the story, it is very much cleared for what reason, whom has got for reason or for what purpose he or she has got married to each other. And it is the theme that we came across as earlier to the pride and vanity is always the focus in the novel. So these are all thematic concerns that we have covered in the novel. I have just presented the information or the gist or summary of the novel. I request my dear students to please go through this video and gain some information, and any queries or questions to be asked, feel free to ask me. Please call response to my WhatsApp number. If you have any doubts or queries or questions to be asked, kindly respond to my WhatsApp number, and I will respond to you all the queries or questions as early as possible when you raise any questions to be discussed. Thank you, students.